Good morning everyone. Welcome to our live session today, our very first webinar for the year 2022. I hope you had a great festive season and yeah, looking forward to the new year, right? Hopefully everybody has a better year than what we had last year. So today we're going to be doing a session on increases. Processing increases in your Pastel Payroll. So it is that time where we may be processing increases for salaries, medical aid, pension fund, provident fund, etc. So that is what we're going to be looking at today. If you have your questions that you would like to ask me, just note that you are in listen only mode. You will not be able to speak. So what you do is that you can rather put your question in the chat box, okay? If you have a question or a comment, just put it in the chat box, then I'll be able to get to that. If you do not hear me or anything, just put that in the chat and alert me that there is an audio issue, okay? But I try to make sure that everything is working properly before we start. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the presentation. I think it's going to be very quick because it's quite straightforward in terms of how you process your increases in your Pastel Payroll. So I'm going to start with salaries. My screen is already opened. As you can see, I'm in my company. So there's different ways of processing increases. One is directly on the payslip. So when you go into, okay, what's that? When you go into your process payslips menu, right? Your very first person, all right, mine is processed. Let me just unprocess them. All right. So there they are, and their salary is increasing this year. So suppose their salary is increasing by, let's say, 500 Rand. All I do is I adjust the amount to the new value. And if you're going to be making adjustments which must be carried on for months and months and months and months and months on end, note that that should be done in the default tab specifically. So if you make a change in the income tab, when you roll over to the new month, being February, the change that you made in January will not carry on, right? It will not carry over to the new month. So any changes that must stick or that must stay on the payroll for a while or for a long time, those changes must be done in your default tab. So these changes will include your medical aids, your provident funds and such. All of that must be done in your default tab. So I'm on the default tab and my employee is getting a raise. Let's say he's getting a 500 Rand raise. So all I do is write on the pay slip on the default tab, I make that adjustment and I click save. It'll then ask me, do you want the changes to this transaction line to affect the current period's payslip? I say yes. So essentially what it is asking me is that, do I want the income tab to be affected as well? Okay. So when I go into the income tab, I will notice that the adjustment has been done there as well. All right, so that is one way of doing your increase. Now, you may have a lot of employees. You do not have time to go into each and every payslip and do this. There is a batch system that you can use to batch in the salaries of your employees. So I'm going to show you that quickly. So let's put this back to, let's say, 10,000 Rand again. And close the payslip. So if you want to create a batch, but note that this, what we call it, it's a module. It is an add-on module. So if you do not have the add-on module already, then you will not be able to use this function. But I will show you anyway for those that have. So it will help you to go and check in your payroll, okay, if you have it. So when you go into process batches, you will notice that there is batch transaction. Everybody will have this. this option may not be available for everybody. All right, only those that have the add-on module will have this function. So suppose you do have it, you will click into it. All right, and it'll give you a pop-up screen like this. It'll give you these two screens, this one behind, this one in the front. Okay, so what you do then is that where it says transaction selection, you will select the transaction that you want to do the batch for. So for example, let's say it's my code 5000, right? And then it wants to know, is this batch going to be amount based or is it going to be percentage based? So if all my basic salary people are getting a raise of, let's say 500 Rand, I will just type in 500 Rand here by amount, and then I will go into filter. All right, there's the screen. I go into filter, it'll give me a list of all my employees. I can then select the employees that are supposed to be affected by this change. So I know in this payroll, I only have John Brown as a basic salary paid person, but in any case, I'll leave them all there and click OK, and then click OK. It says employees must have a status of not processed. So this is telling me that my employees are processed and I must clear run flags for them. So let's do that. All right, so because, okay, progress indicator is still running. But while I'm waiting for it, you will notice that it has already given me a badge for my first employee. This is John Brown. So this is the employee who has the basic salary code of 5,000, right? The other employees I know do not have that code, so they will not come and populate here. And also John Brown is not processed, so it has pushed him into the batch. So if I had more employees who use code 5,000 basic salary, it would have listed the rest of them here. All right, the progress indicator is still running. I don't know why it's so slow. All right, let me see if I can cancel this process. Perfect. So what I want to do is I just want to clear run flags for everybody on this payroll. And then what I want to do is I'm going to change 2 or 3 more people and give them code 5,000. So you see how the batch works. So I know John. Okay, let's do this. I know John is already using basic salary code 5,000. Let me maybe find another monthly paid person and also give them basic salary code 5,000. So what I'll do is I'll delete the 5002 from this one, which is an hourly wage code, and then rather add code 5,000 basic salary, because I want to show you how the batch works. Give him a random amount, 15,000 Rand. All right, so notice that whom do we have? Vusi Chabalala has got 15,000 Rand. Then I'm gonna go to John Brown, has got 10,000 Rand. So now I'm going to go and create that batch for them. So I'm going back to process batches, multiple transaction manager. Gives me this pop-up screen. I say I'm looking for basic salary code 5,000, and all my employees are getting an additional 500 Rand. And then I filter. I can filter both of them because I know exactly who they are. Under employees to process, click OK, click OK. Then you will notice that it will bring those employees onto the batch here, whereby I can now click on update payslip. Oh, I need to give my batch a name. Apologies for that. Do you want to save the batch? Let's say cancel quickly. and call this batch increases, right? Then I want to say update batch. Do you want to save your changes? I say yes. You have selected to update this batch. Do you want to continue? I say yes. Okay, gives me this pop-up. It says update the current period only or update the default and current period. So I will select that I want to update both, all right? And click OK. Are you sure you want to continue? I say yes. The batch has been successfully updated. Now, when I go into the payslips of my people, I am expecting to see that John Brown. Oh, I see what I did there. I'll show you now. But now I'm seeing that the batch has updated John Brown with 500 Rand, right? So essentially, in this case, I made a mistake. I did not process an increase. Instead, I overrode what was already on the payslip. So, but that is how it works. So we're going to go and do it correctly just now. All right. So there it has updated John with whatever it is that was on my batch. And then when you go to, or when I go to Vusi, I will notice that also it would have updated Vusi as well. All right. So what I've just done now is a very common mistake that you would see happen many times. But in any case, so what you do, you go to process batches, multiple batch transaction to correct. Okay. It's not giving us the pop-up. There's the pop-up come. Okay. So let's say, for example, our employees were, because we've already made the mistake. So let's say the people were previously earning 500 Rand and we want to add an additional 500 Rand. What do you do? So transaction code, basic salary 500, 5,000. Okay. Amount, then we want to add an amount of 500. Notice here at the bottom, okay, I made a mistake here. I didn't pay attention to this. So it says action or function. Do you want to replace transaction values? And that is what I did, right? That is the mistake that I did. But when you go to the second option, it said add to transaction values, subtract from transaction values. So what we were supposed, or what we are supposed to do is that you're supposed to say add to transaction values, meaning add 500 to whatever is already on the payslip. Okay, so in this case, when we're done, we should be seeing a basic salary of 1,000 Rand, essentially. You will then again filter your people, choosing whomever it is that you need. Then you can click on OK. It now gives you your batch and it shows you that the period amount is going to be 1,000 because it's that 500 that is originally on the payslip and the 500 Rand that you've added. You then have to give your batch a name, whatever name you choose, and then you can update again the batch to the payslip. Notice that when you've updated the batch, the status of it changes top right-hand side, and the batch is now grayed out. Okay. Now, when you go into the payslip, process payslips, okay, my batch is not working properly. So you will notice my batch is not working properly. We're going to try it one last time. So you will notice that in the default tab, 500 Rand. In the income tab, 1,000 Rand. And this is definitely not what you are looking for. Okay. So what you are looking for is that the default tab must be updated as well. Because guess what? If I roll over this payroll to February, I am only going to have that amount on the payslip. All right. So I don't know why there is just steps that I'm missing for whatever reason that is unknown to me right now. You just want to see. So I'm selecting that I want, okay, no. Just want to work with the lower amount of 500 Rand. Make sure that you make the correct selection at the bottom. You must filter, select your people again. Click OK. Right. Let's do this. Increases. Updates. Do you want to save the changes? Yes. You have selected to update this batch. Do you want to continue? Yes. Okay, there's another pop-up that is hiding. Update current period only. Oh, that is what I did. So you will notice that I've been making very common mistakes that you may find yourself making, but don't worry, just do it again and check that you're looking at everything, all right? So it helps. And for those that always come into these sessions, you will remember that I always say read every pop-up that comes up, because that pop-up has important information for you. And guess what? Today I didn't read every pop-up. So update Payslips options. Do you want to update the current period only, or do you want to update the default and current periods? So this is the pop-up that I missed. You must select you want to update the default and current period, because what did I do last time? This is the selection that I had, and only the income tab was updated. Okay, so we need to make the correct selection. Click on OK. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes. Batch successfully updated. OK. Status is updated. Batch is grayed out. I cannot edit it anymore. So now when I go back to the payslip, I am now expecting that my default tab must be updated as well. And there it is. The default tab has been updated. So essentially, that is how you do your batch. Okay. So even us can make mistakes clearly. All right then. So that is how you do your batch for those who have the multiple batch transaction manager module on your payroll. If you do not have the multiple batch transaction manager on the payroll, you do it directly on the payslip, or you can still use the batch, but it will not be as quick. So you can go to process batches. You will have this selection, the first top selection. Then you can give your batch a name, and you will have to then filter and select your employees individually, one by one, selecting the code that you want to, okay, selecting the code that you want to update. You can either type it in if you know it, or you can search for it there. All right, then you can put in the amount. So for example, let's say you wanted 1,000, then you will have to select the next employee, doing the same for them, and the next employee, and the next one, and the next one, and so on, until you have done your complete batch. So this is for those who do not have the multiple batch transaction manager. All right, so that is the basic salaries. If you have any questions, I do not see questions as yet. So if you have any questions for me on that, you are welcome to already put them in the chat. So before I move on to the next thing, I will recap quickly. How do you, let's say no, I'll recap quickly. How do you then process your increases for your people? One way of doing it directly on the payslip, you do it on the default tab. If you do not do it on the default tab like what I did, and you do it only on the income tab, when you roll over to the new month, you will not see that. Okay, so you must make sure that it is on your default tab. This is where you will do your increase. This is one way. Another way is process batches. You can, if you have multiple transaction manager, you can use this option. It will be very quick, especially if you have a lot of people, because you most probably know exactly what amount you're doing your increases, or it might be a percentage even. So suppose it's a percentage. Let me just quickly show you that. Suppose it's a percentage. There is an option here for amount. There is an option there for percentage. So suppose people in your business are getting a 10% percentage. Then put in 10D, all right? And add to transaction values. Make sure that this is selected. You've already seen my mistakes, so let's not repeat them. Make sure that add to transaction values is selected. You can then filter the people that are supposed to be affected by this. So if it's only your monthly people, I'll just show you something again. On the column, this column, I don't have a highlighter to highlight stuff for you. So under the filter column, you can select the frequency that you want to affect the change for. Then select employees, then select code. When you do this, by default, it'll show you the people that are in that frequency only. Then you can click on OK. Now you have filtered your people. Then you can click on OK, right? Then it'll come into the batch screen. It'll show you your employee codes for the people that are on that particular pay frequency, and it'll already show you what the period amount is going to be with that additional amount. Okay, so then obviously you have to give it you have to give your batch a name. If you don't give it a name, you will not be able to proceed. Then you can update your pay slips. Do you want to save the changes? Yes. You have selected to update this batch? Yes. Then there's this one. Do you want to update the current period only or update the default and current periods? So if it is a change that must affect your payroll for months on end, you want to select the second option. But if it is a change that must affect your current period only, then you will select update current period only. So this option will typically work for things like your overtimes, your commissions, and the likes, right? Because your employees may not be working the same overtime every month. So if you're doing an overtime batch, most probably you just want to update the current period only. But if you're doing a transaction that must carry on up until the end of the year, you want to do this one. Click on OK, and you click yes. Then again, when you go back to the payslip, it would have been updated. So that is the second way of doing your increases. Last way, similar to what we just did, process batches, batch transaction. You select your employees directly on this page. So you just select them, you select the code, you enter the amount. You do that for the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Once you're done, you can just update the payslip right there. So update payslip becomes available only after you've selected your line or you've completed your line. For example, you see that update payslip is now available for me. So that is how you do your salaries. Wages will work exactly the same. Pension will work exactly the same, though I'm going to demonstrate it. Provident fund will work exactly the same. I'm going to demonstrate it as well. Medical aid will work exactly the same. So, okay, let's close the screen quickly. Do you want to save your changes? I don't want to save these changes. So I'm going to go into chat and see if there's any questions before I move on. Just going to scroll up and down quickly. Just give me a moment. Right, I don't see any questions for now. So I'm going to move on to the next thing. The next thing I want to show you how to process is your medical aid. So suppose you now have increases for your medical aid. How do you do that? Again, you come onto your payslip. And you will remember that medical aid has quite a few codes, right? So there is a employee code, employer code, and there's the fringe benefit code. So there's the employee, the employer, and the fringe benefit. So it is important that you process or you capture your increases on the right codes all the time, all right? Now, I'm going to start with the employer. So the employer code on Pastel Payroll is code 9090. You would obviously already know that if you've been processing medical aid. And if you now have an increase on your medical aid, again, you adjust it directly on the payslip in the default tab specifically. If you do it in the contributions tab, then when you roll over to the next month, your change will not be there. You would have reverted back to the old value. Okay, so this is where you want to do it. Your 9090, if it is now increased, let's say it's now 1,005, you adjust it. And another common mistake that I've seen is that I've seen people adjust the fringe benefits instead of the company contribution. So make sure that if it is the company's portion that has now increased, you must adjust only the company contribution and not the fringe benefit. I'll show you why. So I am on code 9090. I've typed in the new value for the new year and I click save. Before I do that, I want you to notice I hope this screen is big enough on your end as well to see. I hope you notice my code 6172. This is my medical aid fringe benefit. You will notice that it is blued or not available. It's just not available for editing, right? It's blued out, if that is the correct way of saying it. It's blued out. So it has 1,000 Rand because this is the value that was always there. But when I adjust my 9090 to a new value, 1,500 Rand, and save. Do you want the changes to this transaction line to affect the current period's payslip? I say yes. Right, so my 9090 is now adjusted, but you will also notice that my fringe benefit has now been adjusted as well automatically. So do not manually adjust 6172. Let it auto update as per the change that you would have made on your 9090 code. So what I usually see is that you may do this, override the line and type in a value here of the increase. This is incorrect. Do not do this. It gives you exceptions down the line. So you do not do this. You leave 6172, you leave the fringe benefit code to auto update as per the change that you would have made on your 9090 code. So that is how this one will work. All right. And if there is also an employee portion, let's see, I don't have an employee code here. So suppose I also had an employee portion that is now increasing. Right? Do it directly on the payslip on the default tab. And the amount, you type in whatever the new amount is. Whatever the new amount is, you type it in there. All right, and that is how you do your medical aid. Do not adjust it in either the deductions, the benefits, or contributions. Do not touch those tabs. Focus on the default tab. Also, do not touch 6172. Now, going back to 6172 to just give you an example of what I mean. So I'm going to put the value back to what it was. Let's say the value is back up, let's say the value is back at 1,000 Rand for 9090. Okay, 9090 is 1,000 Rand. Notice that 6172 has auto updated, right? A common mistake that we see being done is this. You adjust 6172, you click save, right? Notice that code 9090 has not been affected. So the employer contribution itself has not been affected if you go and make a change on 6172. And this will also give you an exception. But I've seen many times people ignore that exception and move on. And then at year end, it gives you a problem. So you don't want that. Make sure you adjust the correct code. I just wanted to show you this, okay? So let's see what exception it gives us here, because I've done an incorrect processing. Okay, so this is the top one we can ignore. Our person's or our employee's salary is only 1,000 Rand or whatever. It's too low for the deductions that are currently on the payslip. So that's essentially what this means. So we're going to ignore that. But this is the exception that you will get for medical aid. All right, it says medical aid contributions must be equal to medical aid benefit. So in this case, because I went and adjusted the medical aid fringe benefit only, then obviously the amounts are not equal. All right, but also notice the status. The status says processed, which means it allows you to proceed. This means you can roll over from Jan to February, but when you get to February, you will have an issue. All right, so just make sure that you process it correctly the first time. Okay, so I'm just going to fix this because that is incorrect. It was just for the purpose of demonstrating, but we see it quite a bit. All right, and I see a comment here that has come through. It says, that's what I had done. I had updated 6172. Yes, so it's quite a common problem, so you don't want to do that, okay? So again, this is one way of processing your increase for medical aid. You do it on the payslips on the defaults tab. You would do it on payslip 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Alternatively, you can go and do a batch exactly like how I showed you for the basic salaries. So, okay, let's say save and close. Process batches. You can either do it via batch transactions, right? Medical aid increase. Then you can select your medical aid code. So for example, code 9090. Oh, wow. I'm already selecting my transaction code. Code 9090, and then I can type in the amount that the increase is. Let's say it's 500 Rand. Then you can select the next person. Select the code as well for them and put in whatever their amount is. If everybody has the same amount, that is what you will select. If everybody has different amounts, then you'll just put their amounts as per, whatever is relevant for them. And in one batch, you can have multiple transactions. So for example, let's say I have John Brown again, but this time I want to update 8090. I want to update his employee portion. You can still do that. And let's say his employee portion increases by only 400 Rand and so on. So you are able to, in the batch, you are able to capture one employee many times, different transactions. All right, I hope that makes sense. You will notice that I captured employee 001 with 9090, and I captured him again with 8090 on the same batch. So you can do this for multiple transactions, one employee, one batch. And thereafter, you can update your batch. All right. You do the same for your provident pension funds. It works exactly the same. You can even have it on the same batch. So for example, let's say now I wanted to, again, add John Brown's pension increase. Suppose he has a pension increase here. I didn't see a pension. I saw a provident fund on his payslip. All right, so let's say he's got a provident increase. Then I can update it here. So one batch can have multiple transactions, but and I've seen many people do that many times. I just wanted to show it to you as an example. But personally, I would advise that rather have different batches for each transaction, so that you can, so that you can troubleshoot your batch should you need to. Makes it easier. I've seen many batches like this. It's possible to do this, yes, but I would strongly suggest, if you are doing medical aid, stick to medical aid. If you are doing provident fund, stick to provident fund. If you are doing a pension, stick to that on that batch. You can have multiple people with the very same transaction, that's fine, but do not mix your batch. It makes it easier to handle, makes it easier to troubleshoot should there be a problem. So this is the second way. Last way, which we've already covered earlier. Process batches, multiple transaction manager. right? You will then select your code. For those who have this function, I hope a lot of you got it. You will then select the amount, whatever the increment, whatever the increase amount is for your medical aid. I think I like 500 Rand today. 500 Rand. Be careful here again. Replace transaction values, add to transaction values. This is the one you want. Then you can filter. All right. If everybody is getting 500 Rand, you can leave everybody there. If only a few are, you will select whomever is relevant. Then you can click on OK. Then there, your badge comes through and it shows you each person's new value. That once you've added the new 500 Rand, then this is what their new value will be. And this is what will then be updated onto their payslips. Then you can update the badge right there. And remember that you cannot update the badge unless you've given it a name. Let's say medical. Oh, medical aid increases 2022. Then I can say, oh, look at my medical. Do you want to save the changes? Yes. You have selected to update this batch. Yes. All right. This is very important. Update current period only. Update default and current. This is the one you want. Click on OK. And yes, then the batch will be updated to your payslips and you will be able to see the new values when you go onto your process payslips menu. So that is how you do medical aid. All right. Provident fund will work exactly the same. Now, something maybe of interest, Provident fund and your pension fund. Provident fund might be percentage based or it might be amount based. So suppose your percentage itself has increased for the Provident or pension fund. The first place you update before doing batches, the first place you need to update is under setup, transactions. You call up your pension or Provident code. What's the code? 7043. Okay, so 7043 is the Provident actual percentage code. So if you call up this code, and you will see that previously for my weekly people, I had a percentage of 5%. So what if the percentage has now gone up? This is where you change it. Okay, so you do it directly on the template so that it goes and affects the payslips. So suppose it's now updated to 6.5, let's say, right? Then you can save this. There. So it's updated now to 6.5. If I am to go to my weekly people on their payslip, then their pension would have been updated to the new 6.5. So if your pension is percentage based, this is where you update it. You do not create batches and stuff, but you come and update it here. Then everybody who has the Provident or pension depending will have the new update. Yes, so everybody who has a pension or Provident that is percentage based, this is where you come and update it. But if it is amount based, right, because we don't capture amounts here. If it is amount based, then you do it directly on the payslip, one, or you can create a batch for it if you have a lot of people and you want to batch it in. All right, so I'm also going through questions. There is no questions. There's no new questions. It's stuff that we are already discussing. There's no new questions here. And I think that is everything in terms of processing increases. So I'll just give us a few minutes. All right, I'll give us a few minutes. I'll put us on, or rather I'll put myself on mute, and I'll look out for your chats. If you have any questions, I'll look out for those. But other than that, if in the next few minutes there's still no questions, I'll just do a quick summary, then we can close the session. All right, so for now, I'll just mute myself quickly. All right, then I'm back. There's still no questions in the chats menu, so I'll just do a quick recap of what we've discussed now, and then we can close the session if there is nothing else that we would like to know. So what did we cover today? We were talking about processing increases, capturing increases in Pastel Payroll. So what is important is that you need to remember to capture your increases in the default tab. All right. If you do not do it in your default tab, but you rather do it in either your income, your deductions, or your contributions, then you will not have that increase when you roll over to the new month. It will fall away. Essentially, it'll just fall away. So when you capture increases, you want to do it in your default tab. So how do you do that? There's 3 different ways of capturing your increases. One way, directly on the payslip itself, or you can create a batch. Batches, there's 2 options for you. You can either do a multiple transaction manager, provided you do have that particular module. If you do not have the module, you can use the other batch option, but that will require you to select individual people, individual employees, and put in their code and their amount. All right. And when you're doing increases for medical aid, it works exactly the same. You need to capture them directly on the payslip of the employee on the default tab. If you are processing an increase for a company contribution, do not touch the fringe benefit code. Leave the fringe benefit code, but rather focus on the company contribution. One thing that I forgot to mention, it's not part of increases, but it makes a difference as well. So in your medical aid, if your employee has a change in their beneficiaries, so suppose they now have a new additional beneficiary, where do you adjust that? That is done in the master file. All right, let's show you quickly. That is done in the master file, in the statutory tab, in the medical aid tab. So suppose this particular person had one, okay, that's my alarm. Suppose that person had one beneficiary himself, but now he has a new spouse, okay, whom he's added on the medical aid. So this is where you adjust it. Do not override anything on the payslip, just adjust it here. In the master file, in the statutory tab, in the medical aid tab. So suppose it's now himself and a spouse, or himself and a child, whatever the case, then you click save. This will then auto update on the payslip. All right, so yeah, that's just one more thing that may be of interest to you. So that is medical aid. You need to process the increase on the defaults tab. If you're doing a company contribution, only update the company contribution code. Do not touch the fringe benefit code. All right. So that is medical aid for you. And then for provident fund, again, directly on the payslip, on the defaults tab, that is where you make the adjustment. You are able to go and do a batch if that is what you would like, as per what we showed earlier. You are able to create a batch. However, if the provident fund you are using is percentage based, then you want to do it directly on the template under close page, under setup transactions. and then you will search for your provident percentage code or for your pension percentage code, and you will adjust it there. Notice that the fringe benefit codes are not touched. You do not make changes to the fringe benefit codes. You only focus on the company contribution or the employee contribution. Okay. All right, so I was just going through, I was just reading a question. So you will not be able to update, a provident fund that is percentage based via a batch. Let me show you why. When you go to process batches, multiple batch, when you come here, 7043, notice that percentage, there's just no option for percentage. That is because it's supposed to be done on the template itself. So it's supposed to be done under setup transactions. Okay, you will not be able to batch it if it is percentage based, but if it is amount based, then you will be able to batch it because you can simply type in an amount. All right then. So I don't know, I don't see any more questions on this. What I'll do is I'll mute myself again, looking out for your questions. Then I will close the session at 11 o'clock if there is no other questions. You can request that I demonstrate something for you if there was something else that you wanted to see. Other than that, note that the next webinar will be in 2 weeks' time. It'll be on the 2nd of February. And on that, we will be discussing clearing of exceptions. Clearing of exceptions. So common exceptions that you get are exceptions like the one that we created earlier, whereby you may have gone and updated the fringe benefits code, and it's now telling you that it's incorrect. So it's that type of thing we'll be looking at. All right. You are also welcome to send in exceptions that you would like us to look at. You can send them via chats here or to email support. Then we can do demonstrations on that for you in 2 weeks' time, not next week. Right, I'm going to mute myself. Look out for your questions. I'll come back later and I will close the session if there is no more questions. Thank you. All right, I'm back again. So we've not had any questions. So what we'll do is that we will wrap this up and close the session for the day. Thank you so much for joining me today on this. And if you still have any questions, you are welcome to email our email support. Then we will be able to assist you. You'll also find me there as well. All right. So thank you so much for joining us and have a lovely day further. Thank you. Bye-bye.